예. 잠시 후 5분 뒤에 모캡 총회를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 통역 마이크 좀 확인해 주십시오. 행사에 참석해 주신 내빈께서는 모두 자리에 착석해 주시면 고맙겠습니다. 5분 뒤에 행사가 시작되겠습니다.
잠시 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 통역 수신기 사용 시 채널 1번이 한국어, 채널 2번이 영어로 정해져 있으니 확인해 주시기 바랍니다. This is a small announcement for the interpreter receiver. You'd have to change it to channel 1 for Korean, channel 2 for English. Channel 1 for Korean, channel 2 for English. Thank you very much.
하나 더 바꿔드릴게요.
Good morning.
예. 안녕하십니까. 지금부터 모캡 총회의 사전 행사로 진행되는 국제학술대회를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 개막 행사의 사회를 맡은 저는 한국국학진흥원 국학기본본부장 권진호입니다. 인사 올리겠습니다. 이번 모캡 9차 총회는 4년 만에 대면으로 열리는 아주 뜻깊은 자리입니다. 그래서 더욱 의미 있는 총회가 되기를 기대해 봅니다. 그럼 먼저 이번 모캡 총회를 개최하는 KSI 정종섭 원장님의 개사가 있겠습니다. 원장님 단상으로 모시겠습니다.
Good morning. How is the Andong? Good? Yeah. Poggy Lake and very long, the historic, the Confucian city. Enjoyed. 안녕하십니까? KSI 원장 정종섭입니다. 교실에 계신 늦가을에 MOWCAP 총회 참가를 위해서 안동을 찾아주신 국내외 모든 분들을 환영합니다. 특히 아시아 태평양 지역을 중심으로 세계 기록유산의 보존과 활용을 위해서 누구보다 노력하고 계신 MOWCAP 김귀배 의장님을 비롯한 의장단 여러분과 유네스코 본부에 참가해 주신 팍선 반다님을 비롯한 여러 전문가 분들에게도 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 또한 각 국가를 대표하는 대표단과 등재 추진을 위해서 안동까지 찾아주신 여러분들에게도 따뜻한 환영의 뜻을 전합니다. 특히 이번 총회가 안동에서 개최될 수 있도록 물심양면으로 도와주신 이상학 안동 부시장님에게도 감사를 드립니다. 안동은 한국을 대표하는 전통 문화 도시로 이 지역에서 특히 한국인들의 기록에 대한 열정과 보존의 노력들이 고스란히 남아 있습니다. 수많은 기록유산과 이를 보존하기 위한 시스템이 그대로 남아있는 곳이기도 합니다. KSI는 이러한 기록들을 수집 보존함으로써 선거를 후대로 전승하기 위해 설립된 기관입니다. 이러한 전승 대상에는 물리적인 기록유산도 있겠지만 그보다도 더 중요한 선조들의 기록열과 보존의 노력도 포함되어 있습니다. KSI가 기록유산이 가진 가치를 재발굴하고 현대적인 활용 가능성을 모색하며 이러한 기록유산의 가치를 한국을 넘어 세계인들과 함께 공유하기 위해 노력하는 이유이기도 합니다. 특히 KSI가 60만 점이 넘는 기록유산은 대부분 국가의 기획이나 주도하에 생산된 것이 아니라 오랜 시간에 걸쳐서 민간에서 자발적으로 생산하고 보존해온 유산들입니다. 이 때문에 KSI가 현재 보존하고 있는 많은 기록유산들은 이전에 국가의 보존 정책에서 벗어나 훼손 및 멸실의 위기에 처해 있기도 했었습니다. 그렇지만 2015년 유네스코 세계기록유산 국제 목록에 등재된 한국의 유교 책판 역시 그러한 위기에 처해 있었고 2016년 한국에서 최초로 유네스코 세계기록유산 아시아 태평양 지역 목록에 등재된 한국의 편액 역시 마찬가지였습니다. 이러한 기록유산을 수집 보존하고 그 가치를 새롭게 발굴하다 보니 이제 한국을 넘어 세계인들이 인정을 하는 기록유산이 되었습니다. KSI는 이러한 경험을 기반으로 기록의 가치를 국제사회와 공유하고 훼손 및 멸실 위기에 있는 세계의 기록유산에 대한 보존과 활용 정책에 기여해야 할 필요성을 가지게 되었습니다. 그래서 한국 세계기록유산 지식센터 유치 및 올 7월 유네스코 세계기록유산 아시아 태평양 지역 위원회 사무국을 유치한 이유입니다. 이제 KSI는 좀 더 적극적으로 국제사회와 연대해서 세계 기록유산 보존 및 활용 정책에 기여할 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다. 이번 총회는 코로나19과 새로운 등재 프로세스 마련 과정에서 4년 만에 개최되는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 특히 근래 세계 기록유산 프로그램은 많은 변화를 겪고 있으며 또 앞으로도 많은 변화를 예고하고 있습니다. 이러한 시기 세계 기록유산 본래의 정신을 기억하고 인류가 함께 기록유산에 대한 보존 및 활용을 위한 연대를 공고히 하는 이번 총회는 그 어느 총회보다도 뜻깊다고 생각을 합니다. 많은 논의가 이루어지고 이 총회를 통해서 세계 기록유산 프로그램이 한층 더 성장하는 계기가 되기를 기원합니다. 코로나19 이후 오랜만에 얼굴을 마주하는 회의입니다. 세계적 팬데믹이 가져다 준 고립에서 벗어나 이번 총회를 통해서 기록유산 분야의 끈끈한 연대가 더욱 공고해지기를 바랍니다. 총회 기간 내내 안동에서의 행복한 시간이 되시기를 기대합니다. 대단히 감사합니다. 땡큐.
예, 원장님 감사합니다. 다음은 모캡 총회 호스트 도시의 이상학 안동 부시장님의 환영사를 듣도록 하겠습니다.
예, 안동 부시장 이상학입니다. 먼저 오늘 이 뜻깊은 자리에 저희 권기창 안동시장님께서 오셔서 환영의 인사를 드려야 됩니다만 부득이한 일정으로 부시장인 제가 인사 말씀 드리게 됨을 양해해 주시기 바랍니다. 코로나19와 새로운 등재 프로세스 마련으로 인해 4년 만에 열리는 모캡 총회를 우리 안동에서 개최하게 됨을 매우 영광스럽게 생각합니다. 이번 총회를 위해 안동을 찾아주신 여러분을 안동시를 대표하여 진심으로 환영합니다. 특히 김기배 의장님을 비롯한 의장단 여러분과 유네스코 및 각 국가를 대표하여 안동을 찾아주신 모든 유네스코 세계기록유산 관계자 여러분께 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 또한 각국의 중요 기록유산을 유네스코 세계 기록유산 아태지역 목록에 등재하기 위해 노력해 오신 여러 기관의 담당자와 이를 참관하기 위해 우리 안동을 찾아주신 모든 분들께 환영의 뜻을 전합니다. 더불어 안동에 모캡 사무국을 유치하고 이번 총회 개최를 위해 노력해 주신 한국국학진흥원 정종섭 원장님을 비롯한 관계자 여러분께도 진심으로 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 우리 안동은 한국에서 가장 한국다움을 간직하고 있는 역사 도시입니다. 한국 정신 문화의 수도라고 일컬어질 정도로 한국의 오랜 역사와 기록을 고스란히 간직한 곳입니다. 국내 사람들부터 가장 한국다움을 찾기 위해서 반드시 방문해야 될 고장으로 알려져 있기도 합니다. 이를 대변하듯이 유네스코 세계유산으로 하회마을과 봉정사, 도산서원, 병산서원이 등재되어 있고 유네스코 세계기록유산 국제목록에 한국의 유교 책판이 아시아 태평양 지역 목록에는 한국의 편에 만인의 청원 만인소가 등재되어 있습니다. 그리고 다음 주면 모로코에서 열리는 유네스코 인류 무형유산 정부간위원회에서 하회 별신구 달놀이가 유네스코 인류 무형유산으로 등재될 예정입니다. 또한 이번 총회에서도 안동문화권을 중심으로 여성들만의 주체적인 문학활동의 증거물인 내방가사가 등재 여부를 기다리고 있습니다. 이처럼 올 연말이 되면 우리 안동은 유네스코 등재 세계유산의 세계 범주인 세계유산과 세계기록유산 그리고 인류 무형유산을 모두 갖는 그런 도시가 될 것입니다. 안동시는 이러한 등재 유산들을 기반으로 한국의 역사와 기록의 정신을 좀 더 확산하고 전승하기 위해 노력할 것을 다짐합니다. 한국국학진흥원을 중심으로 훼손 및 멸실 위기에 있는 기록유산을 수집, 보존하기 위해 노력하고 있으며 모캡 사무국 유치를 통해 등재를 넘어 국제사회에서의 역할과 기여를 위한 노력을 진행해 나갈 예정입니다. 우리 안동시는 세계 기록유산 보존 및 활용에 대한 노력을 적극적으로 참여함으로써 인류의 기억을 함께 보존하는 데 힘을 보탤 것입니다. 누구보다 기록유산과 문화유산에 대한 이해가 높은 분들을 중심으로 이번 회의가 진행되는 만큼 세계 기록유산의 보존과 활용을 위한 좀 더 성숙된 연대의 장이 되기를 기대합니다. 동시에 이번 총회 기간 동안 안동에 머무시면서 우리 안동의 깊은 역사와 문화의 향취를 충분히 느끼는 그런 시간들 가지시기 바랍니다. 안동시는 여러분께서 머무시는 동안 가족처럼 따뜻하게 모시겠습니다. 다시 한번 환영의 인사를 드립니다. 감사합니다.
네, 부시장님 감사합니다. 개사와 한영사에 이어 본격적인 그 학술 발표에 앞서 전체 참여하신 분들을 앞으로 모셔서 사진 촬영을 하도록 하겠습니다. 참석자 모두 앞으로 나와 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 앞에 한 줄 하고 뒤에 한 줄 이렇게 두 줄로 이렇게 뒤로 이렇게 한 줄은 올라오시면 되겠습니다. 예, 마스크를 벗어 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 감사합니다. 네, 이상으로 개막 행사를 모두 마치도록 하겠습니다. 자리가 정리되는 대로 본격적인 학술 행사를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 학술 행사의 사회는 리난 모르 분께 마이크를 넘기도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for the 9th MOWCAP General Meeting here in the wonderful city of Andong in the Republic of Korea. So first, I would like to thank Dr. Jung Sub-jung, President of KSI, Mr. Sang-hak Lee, Vice Mayor of Andong, for this warm welcome. We look forward to discovering this historical city, its spiritual culture, and of course, its documentary heritage. So for this international symposium on the Memory of the World program, we are pleased to have 3 speakers with us today. First is Dr. Faxon Banda, joining us from UNESCO headquarters in Paris. Currently, he is chief of the Documentary Heritage Unit, which manages the Memory of the World program. He has taught and published in Political Economy of Communication, African Political Thought and African Media, Media Histories, Communication Policy, Journalism, and the African Mediascape. He is the winner of the Media Institute for Southern Africa Award for Press Freedom, So before moving to the Memory of the World program, he was a program specialist responsible for journalism education and knowledge-driven media development in the International Program for Development and Communication. He was also UNESCO's focal point for the post-2015 Development Agenda negotiation, working with over 200 civil society organizations to advocate for the inclusion of freedom of expression and media development issues in the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. So Dr. Faxon Banda, thank you for joining us. I now invite you to the floor.
Yes, no problem. I would just use my paper. Thank you so much for that introduction. I want to recognize the president of KSI and register my gratitude to him for the generosity extended to MOWCAP and by extension to UNESCO. I also would like to recognize the Vice Mayor of the Andong City. In my keynote address, I want to focus on documentary heritage and sustainable development. Now, this year marks 30 years of the establishment of the Memory of the World program. On 27 October, at UNESCO headquarters, we held an on-site and online global symposium as a symbolic celebration of the anniversary, which is now being celebrated at national and regional levels through our network of national and regional committees of Memory of the World. The harmonizing theme was Your Window to the World, enlisting documentary heritage to promote inclusive, just, and peaceful societies. In itself, this theme is a mark of true partnership. It brings together the Coordinating Council of Audiovisual Archives Association's multi-year theme for the World Day for Audiovisual Heritage, Your Window to the World, with our own theme, enlisting documentary heritage to promote inclusive, just, and peaceful societies. This partnership also included, I'm happy to note here, the International Center for Documentary Heritage based in Cheongju City. Now, during the symposium, Roslyn Russell, an expert well known in these parts, delivered the keynote address. In her remarks, I thought she beautifully linked our theme to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. For my keynote speech today, I would like to continue to explore the linkages between documentary heritage and sustainable development as a postscript to Roslyn Russell's address. To recap her basic argument, 4 key areas can be harnessed to ensure the achievement of the 16th Sustainable Development Goal, namely to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective and inclusive institutions at all levels, including through ensuring public access to information and protecting fundamental freedoms. The 4 areas that she delineated in her address were: 1, geographical inclusion by way of increasing the representation of documentary heritage from all regions of the world on the Memory of the World International Register. 2, gender inclusion, including highlighting documentary heritage that has proven to be gender transformative, such as the 1893 women's suffrage petition. 3, social inclusion, such as taking care to implement a socially inclusive approach to what is collected and preserved, and to respect the right to privacy in regard to access to records of trauma. And 4, generational inclusion, focusing on how to effectively communicate the messages encoded in documentary heritage to younger generations so that they can appreciate the importance of memory in the form of records that underpin fundamental freedoms of opinion, expression, and information as human rights. My postscript, therefore, is to extend these arguments to the idea that documentary heritage can be reframed as a quantifiable contributing factor to the achievement of the oft-cited 3 pillars of what is called sustainability or sustainable development. Needless to say, this is an ambitious undertaking and may be challenged as to its analytical potency and empirical applicability. However, it is a task worth attempting. As defined over the years, and now within the framework of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the concept of sustainability was thrown into international prominence by the publication of the report, Our Common Future, in 1983, which yielded the most widely used definition of sustainable development. That report defines sustainable development as development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It emphasizes evaluating any proposed initiative with reference to the interaction of the environment, the economy, and social issues. This was reaffirmed by the 1992 Rio 8th Summit, which through Agenda 21 reiterated that we can no longer think of environmental and economic and social development as isolated fields. It can thus be argued that sustainable development incorporates the elements of economic prosperity, social responsibility, and environmental protection. Against this background, how then can we make a conceptual case for documentary heritage contribution to these 3 pillars of sustainability? Let me take the first element of environmental sustainability. If environmental sustainability refers to the ability to maintain things or qualities of value in the physical environment, then it includes climate change prevention and mitigation. Mitigation refers to any activities that reduce the overall concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. This includes efforts to switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, or to improve energy efficiency. It also includes efforts to plant trees and protect forests, or to cultivate land in ways that prevent greenhouse gases from entering the atmosphere. Adaptation, on the other hand, refers to activities that make people, ecosystems, and infrastructure less vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Within this, the idea of disaster risk reduction and management is distinguishable as a strategy for environmental sustainability reinforced by the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Now, applied to documentary heritage, environmental sustainability can be analyzed in several ways, including by establishing how, firstly, documentary heritage is just as endangered by climate change as by conflict, by technological obsolescence, and other factors. Examples of this abound, as is highlighted by some papers presented during the first and second Memory of the World Interregional Conferences in Panama and the Republic of Korea, as well as during the just-ended Third Global Policy Forum. Several case studies, particularly those focusing on small island developing states, provide both a conceptual and empirical basis for arguing that disaster risk preparedness is a key ingredient in supporting the sustainable preservation and accessibility of documentary heritage and the memory institutions that hold such heritage, archives, libraries, museums, and so on and so forth. But secondly, there is the notion of build back better, the 4th priority of the Sendai Framework. These can be applied in enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better in recovery rehabilitation, and reconstruction, especially after the destructive impact of natural disasters such as hurricanes, floods, fires, and so on, that can hit libraries, archives, museums, and other physical holding places. This becomes all the more urgent when one considers that disasters have indeed befallen many a memory institution. Take, for example, the wildfire that burned vast areas of Cape Town's iconic Table Mountain in South Africa, indeed historical landmarks, and the nearly 200-year-old Jaguar Library at the University of Cape Town that houses collections of African antiquities. Similarly, consider Brazil's National Museum, founded in 1818, which was gutted, destroying some of Latin America's priceless collections of scientifically and culturally invaluable artifacts. Thirdly, documentary heritage can be a part of emerging eco-friendly modes of development, including ecotourism. Here, it is arguable that digital preservation of documentary heritage, for example, can promote eco-friendly or sustainable use and reuse of such heritage, especially by reducing the environmental stress, such as high carbon footprint, resulting from overcrowding in memory institutions, such as libraries, archives, museums, and so on. Using digitized copies of documentary heritage from the comfort of one's house or office can be sustainable. Obviously, the counter-argument could be there is no replacement for the original documentary heritage, but there you have it. Arguments for sustainable tourism as applied to cultural heritage protection are presented, for example, in an article on sustainability assessment for cultural tourism sites, case study of Pingyao Ancient City in China. In terms of social responsibility, the second pillar of sustainability or sustainable development, I believe it can be conceptualized in terms of several aspects of cultural participation by individuals. Key to this is the aspect of public access to information, which is guaranteed by Target 16.10 of Sustainable Development Goal 16, namely ensuring public access to information and protecting fundamental freedoms, including access to equity, justice, and so on and so forth. Enjoying documentary heritage in archives, libraries, and museums is a clear manifestation of social sustainability in this respect. Related to this is the aspect of cultural empowerment or participation, including sharing cultural artifacts, some of which may document historically significant information that enhance cultural identity. Viewed in this way, social sustainability in relation to documentary heritage would seem to represent the idea that societies strive to confront the risk of cultural loss while addressing social concerns. As such, the history encoded in documentary heritage may be said to contribute to the following: affirming personal and collective memories and identity. For Africa, if you look at the liberation struggle documents for most post-colonies. Secondly, helping forge a common future. Thirdly, promoting an understanding of the present on the basis of a shared history. 4, providing a sense of safety and confidence for national and international cooperation. 5, culturally empowering and affirming. And 6, enabling participation in the cultural life of a polity on the basis of shared memories. To varying degrees, these arguments are synthesized by Helena Asamoah Hassan in her chapter on Institutions for the Memory, Their Role and Social Impact, published as part of a collection of papers delivered at the 4th International Conference of the UNESCO Memory of the World Program, held from 18 to 21 May 2011 in Warsaw, Poland. She argues as follows: if a society is desirous of developing and maintaining its norms and values, it is important that it has access to its own original information and access to information of other societies. These types of information help to maintain the national culture and memory, as cultural heritage is seen as a key element for a nation's consciousness and continuity. Now let me turn to the last pillar of economic sustainability. It seems to me that economic sustainability goes beyond just economic growth as measured by the gross domestic product of a country. It embraces the whole realm of human development that goes beyond just monetary capital, but also focuses on natural, social, and human capital. As such, in the exploitation of limited natural resources, future repercussions must be considered. Thus, in terms of the link between documentary heritage and economic sustainability, there are three key areas that may be highlighted, at least conceptually. First, the demand for documentary heritage preservation could be an opportunity for innovative technologies, as is demonstrated by IFLA's digital unification project, included in a publication by UNESCO. Over the past 20 years, the Internet's increasing potential for preserving and providing access to documentary heritage paved the way for digital unification projects. These projects take digital collections one step further by focusing not only on national or regional collections, but on bringing together collections across borders and thus amplifying their potential economic benefits. Elsewhere, it has been argued that scholarly interest in the study of spoken languages, dialects, and ethnic music led to the development of audiovisual recording and reproduction technologies in the 19th century. This process continues today, particularly with the advent of the internet and artificial intelligence. Interest in cultural heritage, whether from a scholarly, entertainment, or other perspective, will continue to drive technological innovation, which in turn contributes towards economic growth in terms of return on investment in research and development, as well as in the extent to which cultural heritage can circulate more widely and thus be used and reused on a larger scale. However, even as there is inherent economic value in such technologies, attention must be paid to the risks that may come with newer, cutting-edge technologies, especially to environmental or human health. They may also come at the risk of discarding older forms of media which encode heritage, such as magnetic tapes, due to technological obsolescence, as Diederik Schuller cautions in a paper published by UNESCO as part of a collection of conference papers. He calls for a carefully planned and quicker migration of content from such old media forms to digital repositories. Therefore, innovation in newer types of technologies must seek to be energy efficient and incorporate interoperability features that will work across different media formats and systems of documentary heritage management. This represents investments at the private and public levels that might be linked inexorably to economic sustainability at different levels, national, institutional, and personal. This represents a significant technological transformation with economic implications for inventors, governments, memory institutions, and other stakeholders. Secondly, to illustrate the linkage between economic sustainability and documentary heritage, it is arguable that documentary heritage contributes towards economic sustainability to the extent that new digital technologies that emerge for the preservation of cultural heritage may, in fact, include a refinement of the knowledge and skills of the human power working in memory institutions, librarians, archivists, technologists, and so on and so forth. This is demonstrated in a heritage repository model developed for medium-sized collections in Spain. The project shows that data librarian training needs to adapt to include a range of competencies that embrace, among others, documentation preservation, digital rights management, updating training on new forms of dissemination, interoperability management, and so on and so forth. Third, and lastly, documentary heritage may include tourism-related cultural artifacts that attract high numbers of visitations from tourists who may go to the holding memory institutions, especially archives and museums. The tourist fees involved represent a contribution to the gross domestic product of a country. As Alan Kanata Seed argues elsewhere, tourism is an important source of hard currency, particularly when cultural preservation improves the lives of local residents, their houses, their markets, their schools, their historical places, and so on and so forth. So then, in summary, and to conclude, it can be argued that cultural heritage, including documentary heritage, in its preservation, dissemination, and usage, can contribute towards the realization of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in its observable quantities of environmental, social, and economic sustainability. However, this requires more conceptually and empirically rigorous work. But this is where the Memory of the World program, working with its partners, especially in the academic arena, could make a noteworthy contribution. Starting that conversation, such as I'm doing, is itself a worthy effort. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Faxon Banda, for sharing how the documentary heritage can contribute towards the sustainable development goals, notably through those 3 pillars. While we are here from all across Asia and the Pacific over the next 3 days, we can maybe talk about how we can work together towards achieving these goals as enshrined in Sustainable Development Goal number 17, Partnership for the Goals. So thank you very much, Dr. Faxon, for this meaningful keynote speech. And before we move on to the rest of the International Symposium, I'd like to invite you to take a short break for about 10-15 minutes. And we will, I think everybody would like a nice coffee at this stage. And we will reconvene back in here at 10:50 a.m. So thank you very much. And thank you again, Dr. Faxon.
학술대회를 다시 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 입장 부탁드리겠습니다. Symposium will start shortly. Please come back to the venue, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back so that we can resume the International Symposium. I hope you had a nice break. And so following Dr. Faxenbanda's very significant keynote remarks, I'm pleased to be welcoming Professor Kyung-Ho Soo, who received his MA in Classical Chinese Literature from Seoul National University and then went on to pursue his PhD at Harvard in East Asian languages. His research focus is on the history of Chinese literature, with a special interest in Chinese mythology, the culture of ancient China, and novels in late imperial China, and the literati culture in East Asia. He is an emeritus professor in the College of Liberal Studies at Seoul National University, where he has been teaching for the past 30 years. He has also served as member of the International Advisory Committee for the UNESCO Memory of the World program for 10 years and is currently participating in the program as MOWCAP's Register Subcommittee member. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Professor Kyung-Ho Soo.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My appreciation is extended to organizers and the supporting institutes. But apart from this protocol of appreciation, I would like to start my speech with a congratulation on Japanese victory over Germany last night in World Cup soccer game. That was an unimaginable event at the time when the Memory of the World was launched for the first time in 1992, and at the time of first inscription in 1997. So celebrating 30th anniversary of the Memory of the World program just this year, the victory of Japanese soccer team over what is so-called German Tank Division is signifying the changes that had taken place during the 30 years in parallel with the development of the program and its extension, and also its potential for the sustainability for the future, as Dr. Banda had beautifully articulated. As a scholar of humanities, however, I would like to take an approach a little bit different from what had been taken by Dr. Banda just before, making a retrospective observation on how and why the Memory of the World program had been developing and what impulse or inspiration it gives to the intellectual community worldwide. We know that this program had been originally designed by those experts related to memory institutions, and this program had been motivated by the spirit of those experts in that particular professional sphere. Therefore, the theme of preservation and also enhancing access to the documentary heritage was much emphasized. On the other hand, however, there had been no attempted active dialogue between these professionally charged experts and those who are not directly related with handling of the documents themselves. So in some cases, when I was serving as a member of International Advisory Committee from 2005 through 2013, I have been encountering many questions about what is this program about, as well as what role this program is conducting or undertaking in the larger context of intellectual discourses that has been constantly changing during the period at the turn of the century. And that's the theme I would like to address on this occasion. I don't know how many of you are still familiar with the terms like deconstruction, post-colonialism, or global history, or some other terminologies that had been pervading during at the time of the last decades, or the first decade in this century, or the last decade of the previous century. The launching of the Memory of the World program had coincided with the culmination of the so-called new trend in intellectual discourse called the construction movement, or post-colonialism or postmodernism in 1990s. And nobody outside this program had recognized what this program would contribute or participate in intellectual discourses that had been going on in a wider arena of the international intellectual communities. And nobody inside the Memory of the World program had recognized any potential that this program would play some certain roles in the changing intellectual trend. When I had been first associated with this program in 2001, there was absolutely no discussion at all about how this program would be linked to the outside community of intellectuals. As things had gradually developed, and as I had read more than about 300 nominations from every corner of the world during the period I served as a member of International Advisory Committee, as well as a member of a registered subcommittee in MOWCAP, and also as an expert participant in the Memory of World workshop hosted by the Korean National Commission for UNESCO during the past 12 years. The experience accumulated from those nominations I have read or I had gone through told me that there had been unconsciously created implicit dialogue between the archivist and the historians, or in larger context, between the intellectual community dedicated to exploration of new, fresh intellectual trend for the future. The program had stated first from the onset that evaluation for inscription does not involve any attempt to interpret historical meaning of the documents. That was crystal clear in the general guidelines of the program, as well as in the way the nominated documents were evaluated both in Registered Subcommittee and International Advisory Committee. And that principle is still complied with in MOWCAP 2. However, the documents that are basically material evidence of the historical fact is alienated from the historical interpretation does make some contradiction from the very beginning, and unavoidably there has been some input signified with an attempt at historical interpretations so far. I'm not talking about the political intervention or whatever. I'm talking about interconnectivity and interdialogue implicitly held between the experts in memory institutions and those historians who are exploring the contents of the documents as resources for their research. When I was asked what was the major element that had enhanced the development of the Memory of the World program, I usually answered with the term word significance. Word significance, as you know, is just one of the criteria you can find in the nomination sheet. And it is also an important evaluation criterion. Many of the evaluators rely on when they try to decide whether they would accept that particular document into the list or exclude from the list. But there was little discussion about on the possibility that that particular terminology could affect the mental or psychological response from the side of the nominators. Well, from the nominators' viewpoint, the word significance signifies the possibility of obtaining prestige and honor for the documentary heritage they have at their disposal. And it's also a matter, it is also a matter of national pride, for which case the government or state party had putting lots of investment in the past decades. But in fact, the major impact on historians, I say, or the bibliographical scientists is that they began looking at the documents not only from their own perspective, overemphasis on the document they have, but also in comparative perspective. Means that the perspective by which document is looked at by the holder as well as researchers had been broadened by the word, stimulated by the word terminology of the word significance, which means that even though the statute and general guidelines of the Memory of Word clearly defines that the inscribed documents are just those on the showcase which are equally important with billions of documents uninscribed. But from the nominator's perspective, inscription meant that they are joining a word family of renowned documents, thereby the position of document is heightened and also on the same level of comparative significance. So, unintentionally, the Memory of the Word program, with its slogan of word significance, is contributing to shaping a family of the documents network that is constructed by the inscribed ones as well as those to be nominated in the future. It is a small but expanding community of the documents, not people, for which people are, well, powering their endeavors. And this is one of the reasons why the business of the memory world had been unavoidably interconnected with historical research. As well known, usual history is explained in the form of narratives. But Memory of the World program is another historical narrative that narrates the history with fact and materials. I usually compare it with the tourism, and if the history narrated in context in your history textbook may be equivalent to a package tour guided by tour guide from a spot to another, along with a schedule designed by the tour guide and the tourist agent. Whereas the Memory of the World provides an opportunity of tour to a spot and then just go home. But that spot remains in your memory. And that forms a perception of history in one individual's memory. That's another approach to perceive and even conceive what was and is the history of mankind. So with these intellectual discourses coming and going, the memory of the world is not only important for the future sustainability, as explained by Dr. Banda just before, it is important also in the sense that it provides a very important avenue to define who are we and how we have come to this stage and where we are directed for. And I want and would like to suggest that the experts dedicated to the development of this particular program are advised to further extend their interest in dialogue with those people, those specialists, not necessarily related to the science of library or whatever, that is closer to the business of the memory of the world, but in larger context, engaged in intellectual dialogue and discourses that is going on globally. For future nominators and also the custodians of the already inscribed documents, I usually say that you are entering a network of documents that has some implicit categories that have been unconsciously shaped during the 30 years of history of the memory of the world. For example, we have documents of great achievement from the past. And there are documents of the historical facts that testifies the momentum of change in human civilization. And third, there are documents pertaining to birth of new nations, particularly from the post-World War I era, and still continuing. Well, we are now witnessing the birth of new nations in every 10 years. And lastly, but not least, there are documents testifying how much human being had been brutal in the treatment of their colleague human being. Those four categories are implicitly defined as a means of explanation to the newcomer in this business, but this is already forming a categorical division within the inscribed documents of the memory of the world. For example, a potential is found in the group of documents pertaining to slavery system in the 18th and 19th century. The Dominican Republic and the Barbados were the first group of the country, the states, who nominated the archives of the slavery system. Then the effort was joined by numerous countries around the world, and some more is coming. So now we have a global belt that is extended from Caribbean region through North Africa and Mauritius down to the Pacific region. So it's surrounding the equatorial region, the slave system is clearly inscribed, not simply in documents, but geographically and also culturally. This is just one example of the historical network that Memory of World can form to provide a new insight to the historical discourses of that particular discipline, even sometimes possible to violate and demolish the disciplinary barriers between one area of professional sphere from another. Second, well, I will not cite many examples for that, but another example would be that the records of envoys from countries surrounding China and from China to countries around in the tributary system. We have already inscribed documents from China about the envoy missions from Yuan Dynasty period to the Tibetan area. And we have records of envoys from Vietnam to Chinese court in Qing Dynasty period. We also have the envoy mission records from Joseon Dynasty to Ming and Qing court from 15th through 19th century. And we also have the envoy mission dialogue records from Japan to Korea and from Korea to Japan in recent centuries. If we put together all these documents, then we have a clear picture how diplomatic and political as well as economic structure had been formed in this significant part of the Eurasian continent. This is another possibility that MOWCAP or MOW can cast to the global community of intellectual discourse, not necessarily for historians, but also for those who are engaged in looking at how people have migrated to form other communities to be impacted or were shaped fresh in other regions of the planet. There are lots of possibilities that this program has, and together with the sustainability, as Dr. Banda had described, this retrospective, sometimes retrospective insight to what had been done and what had been achieved by this program so far may cast a new illuminating light to what direction this program is desired to proceed in the forthcoming future. That was my suggestion, and I would like to say that this observation had been done by a scholar of humanities only, and now it is time that to power our efforts to see that the theories in humanities as well as in social sciences merges together to envision more comprehensive picture for the future of humankind. I'll finish here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kyung-ho, for this thought-provoking speech, which opens up a conversation on the relationship between current intellectual discourses, history, and the role of documentary heritage. And I would really like to draw attention to this beautiful and significant point that you made on how the Memory of the World program is about joining a family of documents, which we should strive to support in its growth. So thank you very much. And I'm now pleased to be introducing our next speaker for the International Symposium, Mr. Sergei Karpov. Sergei is our National Program Officer at the UNESCO Communication and Information Program in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, where he is working from the cluster office in Almaty for the past 20 years, almost single-handedly, so well done. His current work mainly focuses on the right to information and freedom of expression for Central Asian citizens. Sergei is looking for cooperation with stakeholders in the field of documentary heritage, open education resources, media and information literacy, as well as digital transformation, including internet universality and AI. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Sergei.
As it was mentioned, my name is Sergei Karpov and I'm National Program Officer on Communication and Information at the UNESCO Almaty office. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today in the Andong International Convention Center in the ancient city of Andong, on occasion of the 19th Memory of the World Regional Committee meeting, warmly supported by the Korean Studies Institute. Thank you for that. Thanks also to the Memory of the World Asia Pacific Committee and Korean Studies Institute for the support of the Central Asian participants, the mission and organization of this excellent meeting. I am going to present Memory of the World activities conducted by UNESCO Almaty from 1997 to present days. And my presentation will focus on members, nominations, activities, illustration, and also resources in Central Asia. Let me start from the office web page, where you can access this presentation. If using modern technologies like a camera, you can just take this presentation directly. It's interactive with a lot of details within the links. Try to use it. UNESCO Almaty supported establishment of the 3 National Memory of the World Program committees in 2002 and 2004. In Kyrgyzstan, it's Central Asia, Kazakhstan and Tajikistan. Of course, Uzbekistan committee was established by the UNESCO National Commission for UNESCO in joint activities with UNESCO Tashkent national office. And we thanks to UNESCO Tashkent for the active promotion of the memory of the world and setting the first nomination of the Quran Holy Ahmed in 97, as far as I remember. It was one of the first nominations. This is our region, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. And UNESCO Almaty set first three, support the setting of the first three the national committees of the memory of the world. Here you can see 5 nominations submitted to the Memory of the World Register. Khaja Ahmed Yasavi manuscripts collection inscribed in 2003. The International Anti-Nuclear Movement Nevada Semipalatinsk. I'm going to show you some pictures from this subscription. And RLC Archival Fund in Kazakhstan. Initially in Kyrgyzstan, by some reasons, petroglyphs of Saymali-Tash was proposed in 2099 and then moved to the World Heritage Center because of the nature of the nomination. And now Kyrgyzstan have no any nominations in the list. Tajikistan have 1 and Uzbekistan 3, but I'm not going to discuss Uzbekistan because we have representatives here and I hope you can interact with National Archives and also other institutions. Regarding the Khaja Ahmed, it's a picture of the genealogy and illustrated by some miniatures, classic miniatures, very close to Uzbek culture. And Kazakh and Uzbek culture, they are very interlinked. Aral Sea Drying Lake is one of the shrinking lakes in the region, and the documents of Aral Sea Fund was used as a basis for the nomination. Regarding the international anti-nuclear movement Nevada Semipalatinsk, you can see how many people was protested the nuclear tests, which was near the 470 tests, nuclear tests in Semipalatinsk region in Kazakhstan. And here you can see the first Digilen test in Nevada Semipalatinsk, and also the documents which shows the explosions since 1949 till 1989 years in Nevada. And here you can see the number of tests, and the documents reflect how many tests are done with nuclear and non-nuclear explosions. And now I'm starting speak a little bit about the National Committee's support in Kazakhstan. 2nd of June 2022, this year, we conducted a working meeting with the members of the Kazakhstan National Commission and the Kazakhstan National Commission for UNESCO. You can see Aliya on the screen and myself talking through the Zoom with participants. Because of the UNESCO Almaty and Astana, they are located geographically in 2 different regions of Kazakhstan. We use this advanced technology inherited by COVID now to interact with participants and help them through this modern technology. It was a lot of questions how to inscribe and how to make the Memory of the World nominations. And the examples was shown to participants, and below you can see on the picture the Librarian Congress and the work of the national committees in Kazakhstan in 2017. Regarding the activities of the National Archives, I would like to raise attention on the archive of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Recently, on 21st of October, the archive is organized Open Archive for Open Society Congress of Archivists, where 1,700 participants totally in different geographical locations simultaneously joined various activities, very similar to what we are doing here, but in parallel. It was an amazing event where archivists from Kazakhstan, Germany, Canada, South Korea, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, Poland, USA, Turkey, Uzbekistan, and Finland are attending the event and also talk about sustainable development goals, how to not just identify the memory of the world object, not just preserve, but also access, because it was a very difficult and important topic in Kazakhstan to organize access of people, not only Kazakhstani people, but also any interested parties to the documentary heritage. And this Congress shows importance of the work of the archive in terms of organizing summer schools for youth, and you can see the pictures, and the work on digitalization. And this work started in '97, since the project HeritageNet of Central Asia, by producing a number of CD-ROMs, like early publications of the Kyrgyz epic poem Manas, also software solution for museums and archives called Museolog. It's a free and open source software. Maybe you heard about it. One CD-ROM about the famous Kyrgyz writer Kasim Tenestanov. He is creator of the alphabet, Cyrillic alphabet for Kyrgyz people. First CD-ROM on Central Asian Archive of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and the work of the audio-visual archives for journalists to access information and create the investigative journalism work. Also, the first CD-ROM on the musical heritage of Kazakhstan. It was very, very successful in 3 languages, and multilingualism is one of the very important issues where people can access in their own languages, but also in the international languages. Also here, in the bottom, you can see the pictures of the first social responsibility examples, where National Library of Kazakhstan invited IBM, the technological company, and also local bank to invest to digitalization of the rare manuscripts and collections in Kazakhstan. Here, the subject of the social responsibility was discussed by Mr. Faxan today, and that one is one of the examples. The activities are quite big. We have more than 20 workshops and different capacity building activities, including the Biennale, literally Biennale, National Memory of the World Committees, this Congress, and the first Central Asian Register of the Memory of the World for Central Asian countries. But the question of sustainability, it's one of the difficult one, because The register was created in 2003 in Kazakhstan and was used initially in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, but it's not became a solution for the countries. And I think it shows the important role of the regional of the regional memory of the world register as a very, very sustainable model of applying for nominations and also of using the access to information to the collections. Central Asian Register doesn't work, unfortunately. But fortunately, we can see the Asia-Pacific Register as a solution in this case. And I encourage our national commissions, our national committees to apply and also use the Asia-Pacific Register as a good model and sustainable model for promotion of the local heritage in Kazakhstan. As you can see from my presentation, it's good stories, but also lessons learned. Because not all solution, not all technology, even artificial intelligence, provide you immediate solution for the access and for the preservation of the documentary heritage in the Central Asian institutions. We should here, can you hear me? Yes? Thank you. Here I would like to focus on the existing guidelines and documents on the accessible on the UNESCO.org. You can see that this towards sustainable preservation and accessibility of the documentary heritage book. Also managing low-cost digitalization projects in least developed countries, very important documents. E-course on incorporated documentary heritage and teaching, and also other 3 documents important for capacity building in our region. Unfortunately, all these 6 documents not yet translated in local languages, Kazakh, Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Tajik, and Russian. The Russian is one of the common language in our region. It's important to translate at least to the one language where, for instance, 2015 recommendation concerning the preservation and access to documentary heritage exists in Russian language. And the session of the Executive Board on preliminary study of the technical, financial, legal aspects of the desirability of standard setting instrument on preservation and access of the documentary heritage as well. Here you can see the huge work which is required for all of us to make joint efforts with the National Commission, with the Memory of the World national committees to work together, create good conditions for implementation of the Memory of the World decisions and capacity building. And here are the recommendations I would like to pay attention, where translation of existing guidelines and courses into local languages for Central Asian is very, very important, at least the common UN language. Organizing meetings with the Memory of the World professional stakeholders, library, archives, knowledge institutions, to exchange local experience on the regional level, on the municipal level. Sometimes we can see as a small archive in the municipality, have a very, very good examples of the work. They do interactions with communities, local communities. They talk to each other, and they have very nice solutions sometimes, which is not known by others. And organizing these small meetings is very important also to make the good capacity for those who was incapacitated. And also talk to the National Memory of the World committees to collect and present the recommendations they have. This is our vision for the next years. Also, I would like to add the economic prosperity mentioned by Dr. Faxon, also environmental sustainability and social responsibility as a key important factors to be taken by the Memory of the World program and promoted by this program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sergey, for sharing what you do at the UNESCO Almaty office, which is indeed a model example of what a field office can do for those 4 countries. In fact, the UNESCO is grateful that you've been mobilizing the Central Asian states to attend this meeting, whether you're here in person and online. So thank you very much. And also, with regards to Sergey's very important call for translating some of these documents, which can be very useful towards safeguarding and preserving documentary heritage. If any of your national commissions for the memory of the world, national commissions for UNESCO are interested in translating any of these documents, please feel free to approach UNESCO so we could work together to have these resources available to a wider audience and to more stakeholders in the Asia-Pacific region. So thank you very much, Sergey. And now I'm pleased to invite you to have lunch in the room over there towards the left. And then we will convene at 12:50 to take the bus for the site visits. Is that correct? Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your attention, and please enjoy your lunch. Thank you. And please take all your belongings with you.